Welcome to Abnormal Psychology, or Psych 308. I think hopefully you're looking forward to this course. I think it's going to be a good one. Always interesting to talk about various disorders and abnormality. So I'll let you introduce myself. My name's Dan Florell, and I'm going to be the professor teaching you this course online for the spring semester. And so I've taught this course a few times before, and I'm also a licensed psychologist and have a private practice, meaning that I spend a lot of time, especially focused on children and adolescents, diagnosing a lot of the disorders that we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to do a whole lot of things in this course to hopefully integrate you into having a better understanding of what abnormality is, and then have several assignments and other things that hopefully tap into a growing awareness of not only what is psychological disorders, but how do we treat them. So that's really the goal here. So what we're going to do today, we're going to have just basic orientation of the class. That's going to include highlighting what I expect of you, and also going over the syllabus and looking at the Blackboard site, just so you can get a little better idea of how I organize things, because I know every professor is a little bit different. So let's go ahead and go on. And the first thing that we really need to talk about is what book are we using here? And we're going to be using the 9th edition of Abnormal Psychology. You should get that in a digital edition through the bookstore. If you have trouble accessing it, please let me know as soon as possible. Do not go through part of the semester without the book, because that's what everything is based on in this course. So you really need that book, and hopefully that section and everything has been all opened up. So I'm not going to do a ton of slides. Rather, what I'm going to do is get out of this, and I'm going to head over to our syllabus here. So here's the syllabus. As you can see here, if you're abnormal psychology, you're in the right place. My name's Dan Florell. I do have an office in the Kamek building. However, because of all the COVID pandemic issues, they've encouraged us not to go in, and if any last semester's any indicator, I probably won't be in more than a couple times. So how do you get a hold of me? Well, there is a phone number. It works. It's through voice over internet, so it'll show up on my computer if I happen to be on it. And you can also leave messages there. But by far, the best and easiest way to get a hold of me is using my EKU email address, as it is right there. That is the thing that I monitor frequently, and I will get back to you fairly quickly if you go through that mode. Now, speaking of email, I know we all have our own lives, and my email is going to be answered, but you need to give me at least 24 hours on the weekdays. And then weekends, I typically don't check my email as religiously. So you may get a response, but I would not count on it. So the best way to get a hold of me and get the quickest reply is to send the email sometime between 8 and 4:30 p.m., 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And anytime after that in the evening, I may respond, or it may have to wait until the beginning of the morning, when I always check my emails and get back to people. As far as the weekends, occasionally I do respond, but most of the times you'll need to probably wait till Monday morning. So just wanted to set the expectation for you, but I assure you I will be back to you pretty quickly. And 24 hours is really on the long end of things. Typically, if I'm on, I check my email several times a day and try to get back to anybody if I see that somebody has written. Now, if there are bigger issues that a simple email is just not going to do, just email me and we can go ahead and set up a virtual appointment through Zoom. And I'm happy to do that if it's just something about the class, or if there was a missed assignment or something else that you feel like it would be easier and better to go discuss in person. I'm happy to do it. Quite frankly, seeing other people, especially students in my class, is nice, because as an asynchronous class, I don't necessarily see you all. And so it's a weird existence for somebody like I am, 20 years in, and have been used to in person and seeing all your smiling faces, or half smiling anyway, and to have this be in a relatively virtual zone. So As I was mentioning, this is asynchronous, so there is no set time that we're meeting or day, but I have gone ahead and structured this through a kind of Monday, Wednesday, Friday setup. That doesn't mean you have to attend any of those times or days, but that's just the way that I think it works structurally, and it's worked for me when we had in-person classes. But before we get into that, let's look at the prereqs. Most of you should have had Intro to Psychology. The overview is really looking at psychopathology, so psychological disorders in all its forms. So we'll spend the first couple chapters really kind of focusing on what are psychological disorders and how generally we treat them, and then we'll get into the specifics. As far as student learning outcomes, you can see those here, and the things in the italics are kind of how I get that measuring those. So you know that these assignments and exams are all for a purpose. As far as course requirements, okay, so we have, actually, I think that I should need to correct that. That's 4 tests in the course. So basically, every 4 chapters, we're going to go ahead and have an exam. Exams are meant to be closed book, no notes. I'm not going to ask you to sign up for Examity or anything, because frankly, I think that's pretty expensive, but I am trusting you all that when you do have your exams, that you will not use any pre-prepared notes or look up answers on the internet. Once the exam is started, timer starts and it will force your completion, so there's no pausing it. So you need to go ahead and give yourself enough time. In this case, it's going to be 34 minutes for each exam to go ahead and answer, I believe, 45 questions, 50 questions, 50 questions. So I have not had any problems with that time frame that anybody's talked about with me, and we've had all these exams taken at least a couple times by folks online. If you have any test accommodations through the Office of Accessibility, please send me that form as soon as you can so I can make sure to put that into the exams to make sure as soon as you log in, you get any additional time that you needed. We're going to do something a little different called therapy chatbots. And so there are these automated apps that mimic a style called cognitive behavioral therapy. And they're artificial intelligence, so it's a computer, but it does give you a flavor of kind of what a therapeutic approach would look like. And also to see if that is an effective kind of manner. So I'm going to have you fill out a couple surveys and use it on a daily basis for a couple weeks, and then we're going to wait a week or two, and then we're going to switch things up and try a different therapy chatbot. I have a feeling this is going to be one of the areas that's going to be expanding, and soon everybody will be like, yeah, why don't you go do therapy with your app or whatever? So we're on the kind of cutting edge here, and I think it's a great example of what therapy would be like if you all happen to not have had that experience. And if you have, you can compare it to how in-person therapy versus using an artificial intelligence for it compares. There are some other class assignments. Those are going to tie in with whatever chapter we happen to be going over. And one of them that we're going to talk about is perusal. So I pretty much have minimized outside vendors beyond Blackboard for this course. The 2 exceptions are perusal and remind, and I'll talk more about those as we get a little further. Now you can see here attendance. Oh, I should say rewind a little bit to class assignments. Class assignments, everything is basically due by midnight of the day that it's due. After that, all of the assignments, all of the exams, as soon as they hit their due date, they disappear. And so it is very important for you to go ahead and try to get that in on time. As far as attendance, it isn't a physical class, so we are asynchronous. I also know there's a lot going on in the world these days. So if you just try to keep me up to date with what's going on, I am flexible in working around things. That being said, I've tried to structure this class as best as possible to have a lot of predictability, a lot of resources, and flexibility. So you know when we go over this course outline that that's what I'm going to stick to, and that's what you're going to have available to you. And I have a variety of means that I'm going to reach out to you to help you remember what we have going on, okay? So it's just real important. I've had too many people in the last couple semesters when we went online, they got a little bit behind and then they just kind of dropped out. And I think it's kind of like once the course starts going, it's like a car, right? And it's moseying along. And if you get out of the car and you stand for a little bit, it becomes harder to catch up. And so I want to make it my mission to try to make sure that you stay caught up and that you aren't surprised by anything that you didn't, receive notices or something like that. As far as the course breakdown, 30% exams, 30 for the therapy chatbot assignment, and 40% for the class assignments. And the grading scale is your traditional 90, 80, 70, 60. Okay. Already talked about what our required textbook is. It's the only one that we're going to be using. And then now Remind. Okay, so there are two ways that I'm going to go ahead and try to keep you up with what's going on in class. Well, three ways. One way you're staring at right now, and that is the class syllabus. The class syllabus is what I'm going to follow. I would highly recommend downloading it and probably even printing it out. And then you can go ahead and keep track of it and whatever works for you. Now, Remind, some of you have maybe used in the past for various organizations or in high school. And basically, Remind is a automated text message system, and it allows me to go ahead and send out a reminder about assignments that are coming up. I typically send no more than 4 or 5 texts in a given week, no more than 1 in a given day. Now, there are instructions on how to sign up for Remind on our class Blackboard site under the course instructions. Now, if you want to, you could also subscribe to Remind Content. Now, Remind Content goes ahead and gives you a highlight, one-line highlight of some of the content we're going over that day or that week. And it's just a good way. One of the things that they know is the best way you learn is through what they call distributed learning. In other words, being exposed to that material over a length of time. And in the binge culture that we have, it's possible in this class to watch all the content for a chapter in a single day or even in the afternoon. So what I encourage you to do is to go ahead and sign up for this so that you can get it over a distributed time, and that means the content will seem fresher to you. It also doesn't serve as a bad reminder if you haven't looked at the chapter to maybe go ahead and look at that. So both of these are optional. You do not have to sign up for Remind, but I can say that the people who tended to struggle most in these classes, at least last semester, did not sign up for the Remind. And I have a feeling that's why they missed a lot of assignments and things like that. So as I said, I promise no more than 1 a day will ever be sent from either of these. So at most you get 2 texts a day. They're usually at 4 or 5 o'clock at night, and they just kind of get you up to date with the class. As far as late assignments and makeup tests, late assignments, they do happen. Like I said, they disappear in Blackboard once the due date is passed, but that doesn't mean you can't turn it in. You just have to either email it to me directly, and depending on how many days you're late is how much of a reduction you get. So every day late is a 10% reduction off the points possible that you can get for the assignment. After a week, you can't turn it in. Okay, so if you miss the due date, don't give up on it. Just go ahead and try to get the assignment. I'm happy to send that to you if you hadn't downloaded it already. And then, go ahead and do it as quickly as possible and get it back to me, and you will lose fewer points. Okay, so that's how I treat the late assignments. As far as exams, you got to make up an exam before we have the next exam. It would be nice if you could tell me ahead of time, but we'll go ahead and make whatever allowances at this point. Of course, it's a Blackboard course, as almost everything else you've probably taken over the last semester or two is, so you're going to be familiar with that. There are support services. Knoll Studios has some good options if you need help working on things. The library, of course, has lots of resources, and if you need tutoring assistance, you have the Student Success Center, or what we'll talk about, the EKU Psychology Department also has one specifically psychology related called the PASS program, and that's going to be on Blackboard, which we'll get to after this. The rest of these are just more policy sort of issues. I should talk about the official email. I will use your EKU accounts. If I send anything, it's going to be to the EKU account. Absolutely, positively necessary for you to check that and check it daily because it's the only way I can contact you. I have no other contact information for you. Now, most of you will just get a weekly email from me regarding the class, but some of you, if you haven't logged into the class that week, may get a follow-up from me basically saying, I miss you, and I hope that you're okay and that you're able to kind of keep up with the class. So it's my own little nudge above and beyond our weekly reminders. Okay. As far as the Center for Students Accessibility, if you do have a disability, please contact them. You should get a letter of any accommodations that you need and get those to me, and I'm happy to have those put in place. Okay. All right, so let's talk about tentative course outline. I put tentative as a force of habit. It is the course outline. You can set your clock to it. We will be going over the chapters, starting those the days that are specified. Like I said, pretty much other than our start date, which was January 19th because of the holiday, everything else is on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. You'll never have anything due in this class that isn't on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Nothing on the weekends, nothing on Tuesday, Thursday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And like I said, I will be sending out an email weekly through announcements every Thursday about everything we just did and what we have coming up. And then also your reminds will send at least one or two heads up about assignments, exams, and other things. So you've got a couple methods to kind of keep track of things above this list, but this is what the list is I'm going to be going by. We're going to probably get through about 1 or 2 chapters a week. There's a lot of psychopathology to get through, and we'll get through most of the book. I think the last chapter or two I haven't gotten over, but otherwise we'll be focused on that. As you can see, you have an assignment due. It's called the orientation quiz on Friday, January 22nd. And so this is the only quiz that we're going to have in this class, and you are able to use your notes for it. I highly encourage it, by the way. And that's just to kind of highlight the most important things that I just told you about in this particular module, and that's in the syllabus. So just want to make sure that you've kind of looked through everything, because I know sometimes it can be easy to overlook that. As you can see, 1 or 2 chapters a week. Our first real assignment beyond the orientation quiz is a perusal article discussion. You do have to go to a separate website, though you can go to Blackboard to get to that website. And basically what I'm going to do 4 times throughout the semester is post a journal article that talks about a lot of the issues that we are discussing in class. And so I want you to get exposed to some of the professional literature. I think it's a good time to do it. And the great thing about it is it's just a class, mutual class ability to comment on an article and then comment on classmates' comments. And then it automatically scores you on a 0 to 3 scale. And I basically give those that get the 3 a full credit. The ones that get 2s get Bs, and the ones that get 1s get Cs. But you can see your progress on it, and there are hints on how you can get the high scores on those. Okay. All right. As far as the article, the assignments and the exams, I give the assignments at least a week ahead of time. They'll pop up and be available, so you have a whole week to complete them. And the study guides for the exams go out a week ahead of time too. So you have plenty of time to look those over. So you can kind of see, I also have the page numbers, in the textbook that the chapters correspond to and what we'll be going over. Everything in bold tends to be when things are due, either exams or assignments. If they're in italics, they're usually in regards to the therapy chatbot assignment and when to start doing that. Okay. There are some random days, as you can see, like April 2nd, that the university decided to close to make up, I guess, for not having a spring break. But this is an asynchronous class, so I don't know really what that has to do with much of anything other than I'm not going to make anything due that day. And so I noted it in the syllabus, but basically we'll continue to go through chapters, and you can, of course, access content whenever you would like, so I won't stop you. All right. One little other note. Our class is going to wrap up April 28th. There is a finals week, May 3rd through 6th, but I feel we pretty much have gotten through everything, and we do not have a cumulative final. So April 28th, everything's wrapped up, and it gives me some extra time to get all the grades in and everything. So that's the syllabus. Let me go through, and the last thing we're going to talk about today is the Blackboard site, just so you can have a little idea of how I organize things. So you may have already received the welcome to this class, and that is on the announcements. I send out a weekly roundup that reviews what we just have gone over in the previous week, and then also what we have coming up. And I put that out usually around Thursday morning, maybe late Wednesday night, and it will stay on our announcements page for a week. I also email you the same announcement. And I'll do that every week for the whole semester, so you know exactly where you can go to see what happened and what we're going to. That way you can see if, oh yeah, I forgot that we had to do that, and that you can make up that assignment. Okay, so that's in the announcements. Course information, what we have here is we're going to have the syllabus, and then we also have your instructions on how to sign up for Remind. So here's the Remind for the content, and here's the Remind for the assignments. Once again, these are optional, but I would highly recommend using those. Those are going to be put into place the very first day, the 19th, that we start class. Now, the two most that you're going to use the most often are going to be your course documents and assignments tabs. Now, if we look at Chapter 1, you can see that you have the slides that I use in the video presentations, and they're put in a PDF on note format, so you can go ahead and take notes if you watch the videos. The video modules, you can see here, there are 3. And in this case, the video modules are going to be much shorter than the one that you're watching right now. So I aimed to have each module between 8 and 15 minutes in length, and they are consecutive. So if you want a beginning of the chapter, you go to module 1. I would recommend watching them in sequence. And so you can kind of take your time. There's anywhere from 3 to, I want to say, 8 or 9, maybe even 10 modules per chapter, and that corresponds to lecture that we would have if we had been meeting in class. In the first part of the classes, there are also going to be audio options, and this is what I recorded when I was teaching the class. Unfortunately, the first time I taught this class was last year at this time, so I only have audio for the first few chapters of my in-class instruction before we had to go to the remote version. So, but at least for the first half of the semester, you do have the option to listen to audio as well as the video options. You do not have to listen, by the way, to both of those. Just be redundant. It's over the exact same material, but if you're having bandwidth issues, the audio may come in handy. Now, as far as assignments, nothing's listed currently because nothing's come up, but you do have that orientation one, and this is where you would find it. It's also where I put all the exam study guides. And then finally, you have your exams tab. And so any days that we have exams, this is where you're going to be located, and this is what you would go ahead and click on. Okay, so that's the overview of the course and how I structure things. If you have questions, do reach out. I'm anxious to have you learn this content. Like I said, this is oftentimes for psychology majors one of the more interesting ones. It certainly is what we usually think about when we think about psychology, is the disorders. And it is a rich field, let me assure you. So looking forward to having you in our online asynchronous course, and be in touch.